Macklin Celebrini is a lock to make Team Canada in Turin at the Olympic Games. Carlo.
Belief. 19 years old. I mean, look at what he's doing in San Jose with no elite skill around him. You put him with elite skill that Canada has to offer. I saw this guy play at the World Championships, 4 goals, 4 assists. Oh, by the way, playing alongside Sidney Crosby.
He's sick.
I think he'd be excited to play alongside Celebrini.
Make believe only because of one word: lock.
What if I told you that the NHL's biggest nightmare isn't a scandal, a lockout, or even declining ratings? It's an 18-year-old kid from Vancouver who's rewriting the rulebook faster than anyone thought possible. His name is Macklin Celebrini, and he's not just living up to the hype, he's obliterating it. But here's the thing the league doesn't want you to know. They saw this coming. They knew exactly what they were getting. And they're terrified of what it means. Because when a player this young, this complete, this unstoppable emerges on a rebuilding team in a small market, it doesn't just change a franchise. It exposes everything wrong with the system itself. This is the story of how Macklin Celebrini became the NHL's beautiful problem. Let's rewind to June 28th, 2024. The Sphere in Las Vegas. Draft night. The San Jose Sharks, fresh off the worst season in franchise history, hold the first overall pick. There's no suspense, no drama. Everyone knows the name that's about to be called. With the first overall selection in the 2024 NHL entry draft, the San Jose Sharks select Macklin Celebrini. But here's what you didn't see in that moment. The quiet conversations happening in executive boxes around the arena. The nervous glances between general managers, because they all knew what was about to happen. The NHL had just handed its most complete prospect in a generation to a team with nothing to lose, no pressure to make the playoffs, no veteran leadership to hold him back, no expectations except to let him cook, and that's exactly what terrified them. Because the last time the league gave a generational talent complete freedom on a rebuilding team, his name was Connor McDavid, and we all know how that story ended. But Celebrini, he might be different. He might be worse. For the league, anyway. Let me paint you a picture of what different looks like in numbers. In his first 100 NHL games, Macklin Celebrini put up numbers that should be impossible for someone his age. 63 points in 70 games as a rookie. More goals per 60 minutes than Connor Bedard. More shots per 60 than Sidney Crosby at the same age. An individual point percentage of 80%. Meaning he factored into 4 out of every 5 goals his team scored when he was on the ice. But here's the number that should keep NHL executives awake at night, -31. That's his plus-minus rating. And before you write that off as a team stat, understand what it represents. It means Celebrini is putting up elite offensive numbers while playing for a team that gets outscored by 31 goals when he's on the ice. Think about that. He's not padding stats on a powerhouse. He's not benefiting from elite line mates or a system designed around him. He's dragging a rebuilding franchise kicking and screaming toward relevance, one shift at a time. And that's exactly what the NHL was afraid of, because there was supposed to be a plan, a natural order, a way these things were supposed to work. Connor Bedard was supposed to be the face of the new NHL, the chosen one, the marketing dream in Chicago, one of the league's flagship markets. And for a while, it looked perfect. Bedard burst onto the scene with flash and flair, the kind of highlight reel goals that make SportsCenter, the kind of personality that sells jerseys. But then Celebrini showed up, quietly, efficiently, completely. Let's compare their rookie seasons, shall we? Bedard, 61 points in 68 games. Spectacular. Calder Trophy winner. The future of hockey. Celebrini, 63 points in 70 games. On a worse team with less fanfare, and somehow more complete. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Watch them play, and you see the difference. Bedard is lightning in a bottle, pure electricity. When he's on, he's unstoppable. When he's off, he disappears. Celebrini is water. He finds every crack, fills every space, adapts to every situation. He doesn't disappear. He doesn't have off nights. He just is. And that consistency, that reliability, that complete two-way dominance, that's what the NHL was afraid of. Because stars are manageable, superstars are marketable, but players who redefine what's possible, players who make everyone else look like they're playing a different game, Those players break the league, but the Bedard comparison is just the beginning. Because when you start digging into what Celebrini is actually accomplishing, the names that come up aren't just his contemporaries. They're legends. Let's start with the most obvious one, Sidney Crosby. When NHL players were polled about the league's next superstar, they didn't just compare Celebrini to Crosby. They called him a crossbreed of Sidney Crosby and Patrice Bergeron. Think about that for a second. Crosby's offensive genius, Bergeron's two-way perfection, in one 18-year-old body. The numbers back it up. Crosby's rookie season, 102 points in 81 games. Legendary. But he was -1 on a team that missed the playoffs. Celebrini's rookie season, 63 points in 70 games, on a team that was historically bad. And somehow he's still driving play at an elite level. But here's where it gets interesting. Crosby took 3 years to win his first cup, 3 years to transform Pittsburgh from laughingstock to champion. Celebrini is ahead of that timeline. Not in Stanley Cups, yet, but in impact, in maturity, in complete dominance of every aspect of the game. Then there's the Connor McDavid parallel, and this one should terrify the rest of the league. McDavid entered the NHL as a pure offensive weapon, fastest player alive, highlight reel waiting to happen. But it took him years to develop the defensive awareness, the leadership qualities, the complete game that makes him truly unstoppable. Celebrini entered the league with all of that already intact. At 18, he's already factoring into 88.9% of his team's 5-on-5 scoring. McDavid didn't reach that level of offensive involvement until his third season. At 18, he's already among the league leaders in controlled zone entries and transition play. McDavid developed those skills over time. At 18, he's already being called the most complete player in hockey. McDavid earned that title through years of evolution. But perhaps the most telling comparison is to Patrick Lane. Remember him? The Finnish sniper who was supposed to revolutionize goal scoring. Lane's rookie season, 36 goals, 64 points, pure shooting talent, one-dimensional brilliance. Celebrini's rookie season, 25 goals, 63 points. But here's the difference. Lane was a specialist. Celebrini is everything. Lane could score from anywhere. Celebrini can do everything from everywhere. Lane was a weapon. Celebrini is a complete arsenal. And that's what makes the historical comparison so fascinating. Because we're not just talking about offensive production or defensive awareness or leadership qualities. We're talking about a player who at 18 already possesses the best qualities of multiple Hall of Famers. Crosby's hockey IQ, McDavid's impact, Bergeron's two-way excellence, Lane's scoring touch, all wrapped up in one package. But here's the kicker, and this is what the research shows, what the advanced metrics prove, what the eye test confirms. He's not just combining their strengths, he's improving on them. Because when you can score like Lane, defend like Bergeron, impact games like McDavid, and think like Crosby, all while being younger than any of them were when they developed those skills, what do you call that? You call it exactly what the NHL was afraid of. A player who doesn't just compare to legends, a player who might surpass them all. Here's what the NHL doesn't want you to understand about parity. The salary cap was designed to create competitive balance, to prevent dynasties, to make sure that small market teams could compete with big market powerhouses. And for the most part, it worked, sort of. But the salary cap has a fatal flaw. It can't account for players who are so good, so young, so complete, that they single-handedly alter the competitive landscape. When McDavid entered the league, Edmonton was a laughingstock. 5 years later, they were in the Stanley Cup final. Not because they built a perfect roster, not because they made brilliant trades, because they had Connor McDavid. When Crosby entered the league, Pittsburgh was bankrupt and irrelevant. 3 years later, they won the Stanley Cup. Because they had Sidney Crosby. And now the San Jose Sharks have Macklin Celebrini, a player who, at 18 years old, is already putting up numbers that rival the best players in the world. A player who makes his teammates better just by existing on the same ice. A player who turns a rebuilding project into a playoff contender overnight. But here's the kicker. He's doing it in San Jose, not Toronto, not New York, not Chicago. San Jose, a market the league has been trying to figure out for decades. And suddenly that small market team that was supposed to be tanking for years, they're must-see TV. That's the problem. surface level. The real fear runs deeper. See, Celebrini isn't just changing how hockey is played, he's changing how hockey is perceived. For years, the NHL has struggled with an identity crisis. Too fast for casual fans to follow, too violent for mainstream acceptance, too niche for global expansion. The league's solution: market the stars, build around personalities, create storylines that transcend the sport itself. And it worked, to an extent. McDavid became a household name. Crosby transcended the sport. Ovechkin brought personality and passion, but they were all cut from the same cloth. Flashy, dramatic, larger than life. Celebrini is different. He doesn't seek the spotlight. He doesn't create drama. He doesn't trash talk or celebrate excessively. He just plays, and he plays perfectly. And somehow that quiet excellence is more compelling than all the flash and drama combined. Watch him in interviews. Soft-spoken, thoughtful, mature beyond his years. He talks about team success, not individual accolades. About process, not results. About respect for the game, not personal glory. It's almost boring, except it's not. Because when someone that young, that humble, that grounded is also that dominant, it creates a different kind of magnetism. Suddenly, hockey fans aren't just watching for the highlights. They're watching for the chess match, the subtle plays, the way he makes everyone around him better. They're watching hockey the way it was meant to be watched. And that terrifies the NHL. Because if fans start appreciating the pure artistry of the game over the manufactured drama, if they start valuing substance over style, if they start expecting excellence instead of entertainment, what happens to the carefully constructed narrative the league has spent decades building? So here we are, 18 months into the Macklin Celebrini era. The San Jose Sharks, who were supposed to be rebuilding for years, are suddenly relevant again. Not contenders yet, but relevant, watchable, exciting. And it's all because of one player. One player who's redefining what it means to be a franchise cornerstone. One player who's proving that individual excellence can still matter in a league designed to minimize individual impact. But here's what happens next. And this is what really keeps NHL executives up at night. Other teams are watching. Other young players are taking notes. Other franchises are realizing that maybe, just maybe, the path to success isn't through careful roster construction and salary cap management. Maybe it's through finding the next Macklin Celebrini. And if that happens, if every team starts chasing the next complete, dominant, game-changing teenager, what happens to competitive balance? What happens to parity? What happens to the system the NHL has spent decades perfecting? The answer is simple. It breaks. Not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly, inevitably, completely. Because systems built on artificial constraints can't withstand natural excellence. And Macklin Celebrini? He's as natural as they come. So the next time you watch Macklin Celebrini play, remember this. You're not just watching a hockey player. You're watching the future of the sport. You're watching everything the NHL hoped for and everything they feared, wrapped up in one 18-year-old package. You're watching the beautiful problem that's about to change everything. The question isn't whether he'll live up to the hype. The question is whether the NHL is ready for what comes next. Because ready or not, Macklin Celebrini is exactly what they were afraid of. And he's just getting started. If you want to see how other young stars are breaking their leagues, check out our breakdown of the next generation of NHL superstars. The patterns might surprise you. And if you're as obsessed with hockey's next generation as we are, hit that subscribe button, because this story is just beginning.